Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Painted in Color podcast. I'm co-host Lauren Brown, joined by co-host Mia Araujo, and welcome to our 50th episode. Yay!
We did it!
We did it! We've been doing the show for almost 2 years to the month. I believe we started in October of 2020, and now we've, after many interviews and many conversations, going through many different stages in life and projects and, reaching goals and reaching lows and highs. We have made it here to episode 50. So thank you for joining us today. We're just going to have really a casual conversation while we draw on magma and celebration and kind of just talk about where we've, how far we've come since we first aired our first episode and what we're hoping to achieve in the future and where we want to go from here. So yeah, Mia, if you could pop up that magma board, let's do it.
All right, I'm excited.
And also in celebration of October, I believe we're doing a spoopy theme today. It's also like, I'm just like excited about Halloween. Like, I don't know if anybody else like, I think it's an overstatement to say it's like, oh, like everybody's excited about Halloween, but I'm super stoked for October, especially in Atlanta where it's not as hot.
It's like my favorite time of year, like seriously.
Oh, same. Like I love like the leaves changing colors and everything. Like I'm really happy to be back in a city where that actually happens because I didn't really get that when I was in Austin. Like it would be everything's green and then the leaves are just off the trees. There's no transition whatsoever. So I'm just like, oh, I'm excited to like actually have some real seasonal change. So let me see how I can change my pressure sensitivity really quick. It's been a while since I used magma.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. That works. Okay.
And for anyone who doesn't know, this is like a free to use. There is like a paid version of it, but like you can draw with people just by sharing the same URL and draw on the same board together. So it's a really fun program.
Yeah, it is. I would think it was developed by the Lightbox crew, wasn't it? Like at least this particular version of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I also know there's Aggie.io, which I don't know where that one came from, but it's pretty similar.
Yeah, I think they're the same developers.
Yeah. But yeah, like I remember, gosh, Lightbox Expo is actually where we debuted. So it's very appropriate that we're using this platform right now.
Yeah.
Because that was the panel that we did with Bree.
Yeah.
Bree Henderson. It was amazing. And everybody gets to see my crappy drawing skills. So yeah. So Mia, like when we started the show, where were you at in life? Do you remember like where, like what you were doing and like kind of like where you were career-wise, mental health-wise, just in general?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was freshly unemployed from my server job that I'd been doing for several years, but that was the first year of the pandemic, so that was a few months into 2020, right?
Yeah.
And I think things still sort of felt up in the air where I just wasn't sure if none of us were sure if the pandemic would end the next year, or any of that kind of stuff. So I was still somewhat in a limbo state in terms of like financially, I guess, where I was still on unemployment. And I think I'd gotten like one freelance job and I was working on my story at the same time. I think any kind of financial instability like that really is disorienting when you're trying to be creative as well. So I was definitely not in the best headspace, but at the same time, that was the first Lightbox online that we'd done. And from all those months of isolation, it was kind of the first burst of like social something, that I've had anyway. So I remember it being super inspiring just that weekend.
Yeah.
And just the energy of like watching panel after panel. I just remember having so much adrenaline just from this online convention and nowhere to channel it to because I was alone in this room. It was kind of this odd experience, but it was very, very inspiring. So yeah, I have vivid memories of that.
Yeah, I very much remember that kind of same feeling too about Lightbox when we went, because yeah, it was like the first, it was a virtual event, obviously, and I've done virtual events before, but this one was the first one that actually felt very, very similar to being at a con in person.
Yeah.
And like I remember like I was like doing portfolio reviews with people with Bree, and I think that's also when we started the Discord server, and I really just love the energy of everybody attending, and just like seeing like those panels, like being able to draw with people on Magma. And yeah, I also felt super inspired and just like really amazed that they really made it feel like a convention that was in person, regardless of the fact that we had been trapped in our own rooms for nearly a year at that point. So yeah, I was impressed by the way it was organized, and yeah, it was a really, really good time. So, just like chalk it up to a convention being organized by fellow artists, like they know what artists want, and they met it pretty well. So, and yeah, it was also really cool too, because like it was like one of our first episodes. Like we recorded the welcome one, and then wait, no, actually we recorded that one before the welcome one, didn't we? It was like episode 0.
Yeah. The panel that we did for Lightbox was episode 0. You're totally right. And then I think we announced that we were starting the show, and then we're like, now we have to do it.
There's no going back at this point.
Yeah, and I remember that was like, it was totally spontaneous to have Eric in, which was so cool because we invited him as a guest for the panel, and then he wanted to join us on the podcast because that was totally not planned. It was so awesome. Like, I just love how organically that happened. So
yeah, same. Like I had because it was me, you, and Esther, and then like Eric was like he became a key member to the podcast as well, which I was like, it was very surprising, because I was like, oh, I wasn't even expecting this, and this is so cool. To have somebody want to be a part of this, and like and be a fundamental part of it too, because like I can't really imagine the show without Eric at this point. It's just been so long having him as a key member of the show. And like, I mean, even starting it too, like I was definitely the kind of person who I always knew I wanted to have a podcast, but I didn't think that I would have like, the motivation or the, hold on, stop it, quit it. Anyway, cats. I didn't think I would have the motivation to like keep a podcast going if I was doing anything by myself. And I'm always like of the mind, it's like, oh, I have to do this by myself. I have to like blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to get better about that, asking for help and doing things with other people, collaborating and all that stuff. But I think it was like on the sci-fi fantasy, the Sisters of Sofa group on Facebook, is when we were talking about just like podcasts in the art space. And like, I was like, I actually want to start something. And I think you saw, you also had posted that you wanted to start something. And then we were like, well, we just join forces and, create something together. And I was like, oh, this is the best idea ever. Because seriously, y'all, like this show would not be done if like Mia wasn't here. Because like, because we know I have ADHD. We've talked about it before, and it gets real bad. So sometimes I need to be hunted. And I really appreciate your patience as you hunt me down and you organize things. You organize everything, and you like, you're really like, again, integral co-host, but also just like the producer of the show.
Thanks. I mean, honestly, it takes a village, right? Like, it's like we make a great team, and I honestly could not have asked for a better partner in this. And I think you're just as integral to this show, Lauren. Like, you're just the hostess with the mostest, and I love you, and I'm so honored to be on the show with you.
Oh my god, I can't blush on camera. You can't. I really appreciate it, because like I think that this is something that I found out too when like talking to people, like thinking about like investment stuff, and because I'm strongly considering one day starting my own game studio or whatever, and like about kind of like forming your own business, or just like forming really anything. And it's really about finding people who complement you in the way that they cover for the areas that you are weakest at, and like and you cover for the areas that they're weakest at, and it's like together, like we make it like a whole like unit and like a really awesome pod, because we complement each other in a way that makes this thing work. And I just think that's the coolest thing to be able to do. So yeah, definitely, if anybody's watching and looking to start something with someone else, make sure you find a good complement and somebody who fills in your gaps, like me, who doesn't know how to schedule because she has ADHD, time blindness, and and partner with somebody who like absolutely does know how to schedule things and knows how to keep things afloat, and reminds us is like, hey, like we need to record this episode and we need to make it about this theme. And I'm like, yes, we do. Absolutely. So yeah, like, again, it's been really awesome to be able to do this and like to also interview such great people. Because we've had a lot of good guests, fantastic guests on this show so far. And I can't wait to like start bringing in more people, to talk to and just like meeting some powerhouses in the art world. So yeah, like that's been a lot of fun too.
Totally. And that's hard too, it's in terms of like just getting everybody like that's to be on the same schedule, because we're on different coasts as well. Like Lauren and Eric are now on the East Coast, Esther and I are on the West Coast, and then we're all super busy. Like I think we all have like 3 jobs, because it's like Eric's a dad and a teacher and an artist. And it's like, anyway, like I consider being a parent like almost like a full-time job, right?
It is a full-time job. I would never begrudge anybody that.
Yeah, so it's just like, I guess we've never really fully addressed that, but whenever it's just like the 2 of us or it's 3 people or whatever, it's not really planned. It's just kind of whoever is available. I mean, for me, it's more important to just make it sustainable for everybody instead of having like a strict schedule or anything like that. But same with like having guests on, it's like whoever we can line up at the time that we can record is tricky. So it's like there's a lot of people we want to interview that we won't get to maybe as quickly as we might. I guess what I'm saying is if there's anyone we've reached out to that we want to have on and we haven't had you on yet, we still want to.
Absolutely. Yeah, and also likewise, if anybody's like listening or like knows about the show and like wants to reach out to us to be interviewed, like we are happy to have people on board and like to be able to talk about your journey and experiences. Because I think another really cool thing about the show, like how things had evolved organically, was the fact that it not only became a show about like how we intended to start it, with making it something that uplifts voices of color and underrepresented voices, but also how open and vulnerable we have been talking about mental health issues and discussing things that we don't often get to hear about, like on art podcasts, like, or just like things that go on in the art world of, like, hey, like this career is hard and this does take a toll on you. And it's like, here's how to take care of yourself. And I think that happened because all of us were like in varying stages of, life changes and burnout and coping through the pandemic. And so it really became a necessity to be vulnerable and transparent about those issues and to also make people feel seen who are going through those same issues. Because I think, in October 2020, it's like everybody was going through it. Like it was a rough time to be trapped in your house for the first time and to like really face your burnout head on, to not have like any social outlets really. And it became really therapeutic to run the show and to and to open up about those issues and to talk about therapy and to talk about ADHD and like other mental health issues. And it was a very inspiring and healing thing to be able to go through that and have a safe space where I felt comfortable enough to talk about it and to talk about it publicly too. So like that was not planned at all. Like that just happened out of necessity. And I thought that was really, really wonderful.
On that point, where were you? Because I answered that question, but we never got to where you were at in life at that time.
I think around that time I was working at Zynga, working on Deck of Wonders, and I think other freelance projects too. I think some board game projects, and was also just like in like super burnout like at that point. And I remember just being exhausted all the time and really just like trying to cope through like not being able to see my family and having to stay home and having terrible COVID anxiety. Like always like checking if I had to go anywhere, I would like just be terrified that I was like, oh no, like I'm sick now if I have the smallest little cough. But yeah, like being able to work on the show and have something to work towards, and like being able to attend Lightbox was really awesome. And like regardless of all the things that I was going through that year, it was actually like weirdly a good year for me because there were a lot of what am I doing at this face? There were a lot of jobs that were happening. Like I had been featured like in like multiple places, and I think too, because the protests had happened and like all the issues of the Black community were really at the forefront of the conversation around that time. Unfortunately, like I think that people have forgotten again. So reminder, we're still here, even though we're not in pain right now. I mean, we're always in pain, but let's be real. But yeah, like I think that people were really taking notice of including voices of color and Black voices in the conversation, and a lot of people have wanted to talk to me and interview me and share my experiences into like what like how I was feeling and like what was going on in the industry. And so that was really cool to be a part of that, and to be a voice that could speak up and show up. And so that was also that kind of year too. um and so it was a year definitely of like huge ups and huge downs, but it was also sad because like that previous year going to Gen Con and like really understanding like what I wanted to create, I feel like things were just starting for me, and it all got put on hold because pandemic was happening. So that's kind of where I was when I was starting the show. And yeah, like it was a really great part to add to my life and a healing journey to go through. So yeah, that's essentially where I was when the show had started.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, something I wanted to ask you. I feel like what do you think like made the I don't not the most impact. What do you think was like probably the coolest memory of like running the show since we started it?
Oh man, that's so hard to like pin it down to one, because I was actually, when you were talking about that, I was thinking about how this show kind of became this thing that I needed every week. It's like it was something we started because we wanted to do it, but it became a thing I needed for my own sanity too. And
Yeah.
like checking in with you all like every other week or whenever we record, and getting a chance to meet all those amazing guests we had on and stuff, and getting to hear their story. It just, I remember just like every single time we sit down and do one of these and record, not only record it, but when we stream it and listen back, I'm like so inspired. And so it just kind of keeps that the inspiration going. And sometimes, especially when you're going through burnout, it's so hard to sustain inspiration, because it just
Yes.
feels like it's all about productivity and all about how much you're not getting done and stuff like that,
Hmm.
and how little energy you have. And so that's what I mean by needing the show. It's like it really became almost like my lifeline to inspiration in a way, just getting to talk to you all, and to stay connected with other creative people that I admire. And yeah, I don't know, that's kind of a cheat because it's not one specific thing. It's like saying the whole show is my favorite thing, but
Yeah. Well, yeah, like I definitely got that sense too, though, because like I feel like after every conversation that we had with people, I would always like feel ready to like do stuff and work. And unfortunately, it was also like at 10 p.m. or whatever, or like midnight when we finally got off the camera. So I'm like, oh, now I have to go to bed and I can't create right now.
yeah.
But yeah, like I remember, getting off of the call with I think it was Winona, I think it was Noni, and like I just like wrote no, actually no, it was Armand that we got off the call with, and I just like wrote a short story like right before bed just because I felt so inspired. And at this point I hadn't like written anything in like a while. So that was a big deal for me. And just like seeing people like really fully express what they really liked, and not denying that for themselves, but actually like being open to exploring what happiness meant for them and what their creative outlet meant for them, and just like going full force towards making that the career. And like through, like despite the struggles and despite how difficult it is to be able to do that full time, we talked to so many people who do it well and who had great success doing it. And it was really inspiring for me, who had kind of denied myself that for a long time, in favor of the steady paycheck and in favor of the stability. But I think I always kind of knew that that's, what I wanted in my life. And that's what I'm working towards now. And I think I owe it to the show, that I have that like strong motivation to go towards it, because I've seen so many people do it well, and like, and so many people like not deny that from themselves. So yeah, like that's also my very broad answer, but yeah, it's just the general inspiration that it's given me, and the motivation to really believe in myself, and to like do my own thing. So this has been a really, really cool journey.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but seriously though, do you have like a favorite moment? Like I do want to know, like just like even if it's like your first memory that you can recall.
um
No, I have to make it hard for you now.
I mean, I love. I know this wasn't technically on our show, but it was the last panel that we did at Lightbox with Bree and Kristen, and I believe Edge was on it with us too. And we were all drawing like this. It's just, I was scared because that's the thing. We pre-record these, and so I feel more comfortable when they're pre-recorded. But that one was live. I don't know. I just remember just feeling like in the zone and not feeling scared. And I gotta say that that's one of the reasons why I never would have done a podcast on my own, is because I have terrible stage fright, especially when it comes to public speaking.
Yeah,
I
understand.
But just getting to do this with all of you has actually made me loosen up a bit more and feel like, hey, it's not the end of the world if I say something dumb, because we all do, you know?
Yeah, all of like literally everybody. I said several dumb things. I said things that I'm like, I don't even agree with that as it came out of my mouth. I'm like, why did I even say that?
Yeah. But even like, you know, even what we're doing right now though, like I was terrified to draw in front of people, you know, because I'm just like, oh, they're gonna watch me mess up, and who cares, you know? It's like, and I think that was what was so cool about that specific stream, that it's like we were just all drawing, and for the first time it didn't feel terrifying to do either of those things. And part of it was because I was just having so much fun with all of you, and I was so happy to be there. So yeah, that would probably be my memory.
That makes me really happy to hear, like that, like it actually like loosened up your stage fright, you know, for you, and also, yeah, dispelled some of the fears, for sure. Because like, yeah, I know it can be like really scary. Like, you know, even now I'm just like, like, you know, I don't know what I'm doing, but it's not really about that at all. Like, it's just about having fun and just like, you know, enjoying the journey. And just, you know, like creating and just like talking to people and expressing like what we feel and hoping that through the void, like, you know, somebody can hear, like somebody can like take that message and like feel inspired by it in any way. Because I'm like, I always say for myself, if I've inspired at least one person, I'll have done my job. And, you know, I've already like seen comments and everything of just like, oh, look, it's, you know, this is a great episode. I really loved like what y'all, you know, what y'all said about this topic. And that feels really good to, you know, be able to give that to the community. Like as small as we are, like we still have grown a lot over the past years. And you know, like if we like we're giving something back, and you know, I feel like that's a really cool thing. This is this is like a side note, like kind of off topic, but not really, like about that you know, I wanted to kind of like bring up, and it's a little bit, you know, personal, but like when I was having a conversation with my mom, and a lot of like stuff, like life stuff has been going on lately. And I'm just like, oh, like, I feel like, you know, I was telling her, I was like, I feel like, you know, things have just been so hard lately and I don't know what's going on. You know, and my mom is religious, and she was like, hey, have you tithed lately? And I was like, well, like, I don't, you know, go to a church or anything. Like, I don't really like the organized aspect of it, you know, and this is like not a religious conversation at all. It's just, you know, so if anybody feels offended, please don't be offended. I just, this is how I feel. But yeah, I was like, I don't like the organized aspect. Like, I don't really want to, you know, get involved in a church family or anything like that. Like, that just, you know, not really my bag. And she was like, well, no, like, she was like, well, your tithing is really like about what you're giving back to, you know, the community. She was like, you know, she's like, in 2020 and 2021, you were putting a lot into like people's like businesses and like uplifting a lot of people. She's like, are you still doing that work? And I was like, well, like, I'm doing a podcast, but I haven't like done as much of my volunteer and mentorship work as I used to. And she was like, well, maybe you can do that. Like, that can be your tithing. And I'm like, oh, that's a really good way to put it, actually. I was like, I like that mindset, that like, you know, giving back or like whatever, like that's what it really is. Because I always associated tithing with money. And even though I'm not, you know, really religious, like I still like, you know, I like that interpretation of it. Like, you know, it's like basically karma, putting out good karma into the world, you know, has good returns. And that's not why I do this at all, but because I just do it because it like feels nice. And like, you know, I enjoy talking about these things, and I enjoy being inspired and, you know, hoping that people are listening. But like being able to actively give back and like give some good into the world, you know, in a very meaningful way is something that is enriching, you know, in more ways than one. And it's, you know, like this show is like definitely a huge part of that. So it's just like really cool to think about it in that way. So sorry about the tangent, but like that's just like a thought that came into my head that
awesome. I love that. I think that's brilliant. I actually had never put into that context. So go Lauren's mom. That's
seriously. So, like, my mom is awesome. Like, she's super awesome. You know, and she's kind of like the best. So yeah, like she has a lot of wisdom, and that was definitely a great example of it. But no, I think it's really hard to isolate like one favorite moment from the show. But I mean, like just like all the talks that we've had and all the people that we've met has been amazing. Yeah, I particularly have loved all of our panel discussions that we've had with people as well.
Mhm.
And you know, for me, like having the ADHD discussion and like being able to talk openly and honestly about our experiences, you know, like with you know, Victoria, Edge, oh my God, I'm gonna, who else was on that panel? Oh my God, I can't remember. Yes, yes.
Yeah, Viola. She's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, it was a great, you know, it was a great time sharing all of our experiences and just like really like having that conversation. And we still need to do part two of that one, by the way.
Mhm.
But it made me feel less alone in my struggles. And you know, like it was cool because all of us were at different yeah, Teju Abiola. Yeah, it was cool because all of us were at different stages of you know, kind of like our journey and discovering like, you know, our ADHD and how we cope with it individually and what symptoms we've noticed from ourselves and how we, you know, make allowances for ourselves. And that was really cool. It was really cool to be able to bring that to the forefront and to openly talk about it. But yeah, like I just think it was just like all of the panel discussions have been awesome experiences and people have responded pretty well to them. So that was really, you know, validating as well that some, you know, someone's getting something out of it.
Yeah, I learned a lot during that conversation because I don't have ADHD, but I feel like I think that it's even more important for, maybe not more important, but just as important for people without ADHD to listen to a conversation like that, or to talk to other people, to people with ADHD, to figure out kind of like, what are the things that I thought were just kind of like everyone went through this. You get a bigger sense of the world outside of yourself. Because that's the thing. It's like, I think that a lot of art advice in particular is geared towards neuronormative people. And
Um,
I think until we had that conversation, I didn't even realize how a lot of that just doesn't apply to everyone, you know? Um,
yeah.
and it's hard to imagine that if that's not your a direct experience, and that relates to any kind of experience, obviously any kind of lived experience. But for me, it was like really, really awesome to learn about.
Yeah, I'm glad you did because like I think that it is really important, like you said, because you know, if you're an artist and even if you're neurotypical, I'm sure that you have people who are in your life who have ADHD or autism or you know, like other disorders like depression or anxiety. And I think that having those conversations really help understand where they're coming from and how to kind of, you know, uh not accommodate them, but just like where like these certain behaviors and things come from. And the fact that like, yeah, like all of us are responsible for our own behaviors and how we interact with the world. But if you can at least understand the people that you care about a little bit better, I think, you know, being, you know, listening to those conversations and being exposed to those kinds of conversations is very important. Um, you know, because like, you know, like my niece is also very much like me and I've been recommending, you know, her mom different resources and things like that to like, you know, understand her better. Because I
Yeah.
think that, you know, for anybody who is going through it, the more you can, you know, absorb content that talks about it, the better that you have a grasp on what it's like, even if you can't feel it yourself. You know, and for me, like there's certain types of ADHD that I don't understand as much. Like, you know, I'm not somebody who is hyperactive ADHD, I'm inattentive. So you know, like the constant need to move and the constant need to like, you know, have like little ticks and twitches and speak you know, at length, like I'm doing right now, can be you know, it can be a lot in relationships, but knowing that this is like, oh, this is just a part of who I am, trying to work on it, but like it's really just a part of who I am and being able to accept that is really important. So yeah, I really enjoy that we had that had those conversations, and I'm definitely looking forward to having more of them. And I think it would also be good to talk about anxiety and depression in like a more meaningful way as it relates to art someday soon as
And
well.
actually, even I mean, one thing we didn't address that we should definitely do in the second ADHD talk, and in any of the other ones that we do that you just mentioned, like the almost the cultural stigmas too, that like, I mean,
Yes.
because honestly, at least in the in the Latina community, it's like there is a lot of stigma towards like mental health, anything, you know. And so it's just like
Mhm.
you don't get the help you need. At least I shouldn't speak for everyone, but definitely where I how I grew up. And also hearing you all talk about ADHD, I was like, wow, there's a lot of crossover with anxiety too, you know. And so I find all that
Yes.
super interesting. And to me, it's like the more you know about your fellow humans, the better we can interact with each other and work with each other. And hopefully not get in fights with each other, if we just know where
Yeah.
we're coming from. But a lot of
Yeah.
it is just that information just isn't out there. So I love that we're helping get that information out there. So
Yeah, I agree. Because I also had, had a similar experience, like just in the Black community in general. It has been a challenge to talk about like, those issues. And like, I think instead, like a lot of people tend to favor just like masking it or coping with it, or just like, not calling it what it is, because there is a stigma around, therapy, and there is a stigma around mental health issues. Like oftentimes you're told as you're growing up, it's like, oh, like, just like get over it, or like, why don't you just, be happy, or, why can't you do X, Y, and Z correctly? Like you tell a fish to run a marathon, right? Like some people's brains just don't work like that.
mhm.
And, I think that it just came from a place of lack of understanding of like what it is like and how it is to function in brains that are different from yours. It could be really hard to empathize if you don't have those resources to grab onto and to understand where people are coming from. So, I'm really happy that we can bring that to the forefront and talk about it. Um, I think, where do you like, I'm curious as to like where you want the show to be and say, I don't know, this is ambitious and I hope it's still going in 5 years, but like in 5 years, like what do you envision, out of Painted in Color, like as far as you can right now?
I just, I mean, obviously, like I talk about community quite a lot, but I think that is the most important thing. Like that, if we could possibly continue to grow and become sort of a place that people feel like they can belong there, and just like we can help each other sort of share our art and connect people to each other so they could have either collaborate with each other, have career opportunities, or whatever it might be. I guess I just see it as a place for like-minded people who share our values to sort of come together in whatever form that might be. And gosh, I mean, I couldn't have imagined pre-pandemic, I couldn't have imagined this world now. So I can't imagine 5 years from now. So whatever form
Yeah.
it may take, I have no idea. But I just hope that we
Yeah.
continue to show people that diverse points of view aren't scary, because there's a lot of people out there that think there's something really terrifying about a world that is more diverse, which is, I think, is really sad. And
It is sad.
I think for me, it's like I'm just trying to show people like we're out here. We're actually a lot like you, even though we're different. Like same but different is good, and just showing
Mhm.
people that it's like we all love art. And if you love art too, we're kind of fighting the same battle, I guess. I also acknowledge that, like we said earlier, there are people who have completely different points of view, different experiences in life, and it's not as maybe as easy for them to see outside of their own bubble. But I just hope that maybe people listening to our show might feel a little bit more tempted to go outside the bubble, and talk to people who aren't like them. So
Yeah, I definitely agree with that in terms of just like, what kind of show this is going to be and what kind of community we foster because of it. And I think, so far, most people have been very receptive to what we're doing. Aside from like a few like weird comments about like, oh, why are we talking about like diversity and stuff like that? Like, I think that was like during one of our first episodes that we had like a naysayer, but that's not even a big deal because there's always going to be naysayers. You can't make everybody happy. And I'm not trying to make everybody happy, honestly.
yeah.
It's like what I do want to try to do is like challenge the viewpoint of like, of like why this, people thinking that this is not an important topic to talk about, or just like the fact that we just want to elevate those voices that are out there, because really a lot of what I hear, like looking for jobs, like in recruiting, people are just like, oh, like I'm trying so hard to find like talent of color and like diverse talent. And I'm just like, well, we have a whole show and a whole roster of people who we're planning to still bring on an interview. So like, if we can find all these people pretty easily, so can you. This is like, just put the effort forward. And so like, I want to make sure that like people understand it's like, no, we are out here and we are here to stay and we've been out here forever. So, here's a platform that shows how much we are out here. And I think that, making like educating people on like where they can go if they want to hire people, or like just like, want to just like follow more artists of color, or, Black artists, diverse artists, LGBTQ plus, and, disabled, in neuro diversity or physical. I just like, I want to showcase it all. And like where I see the show going is that like, yeah, like I would love to have like, an in-person like art retreat one day, or like just like even having events at conventions, like sketch groups and like having panels in person and, just like really fostering something very positive and very uplifting and inspiring for people to be able to share in together. I always kind of like envision that, like having that dream of like, we stay for a weekend and we just like work on ourselves and like work on our arts and, really work together to kind of build that self-confidence, to like do the things that we have been wanting to do. Like, oh, like if you want to start your own business or start a project or, like just empower yourself enough to make the art that you authentically want to make. Like that's the kind of art retreat that I would love to attend. And that's the kind of thing that I would want to have for other people. And also eventually growing this podcast into a network where other contributors can like make their own kinds of content on the platform. So it's like the Painted in Color network basically. And it's like, oh, like we have this show that talks about mental health, or oh, we have a show that just like talks about tutorials and how to do art better, or et cetera, et cetera. But I always thought that would be a really cool thing to have too. And so yeah, like I'm ambitious, so I always like imagine the world, but that's at least like where I want to start to head towards. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I like it. I love your faces so much, Mia. They're so good.
Thanks.
Yeah,
it's my happy place.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, for anybody in the comments too, or not in the comments, but in like the chat or like the comments later when you're watching, I would also love to know like from you, like what you've enjoyed about the podcast and where you would like to see us go. And if, even if like we haven't talked about anything that we would love us to talk about, I would love to hear about it because like, again, we want to share this with you and like you are our community. So, I really appreciate all of you being here to support us and participate in our conversations and, like comments on our videos. Because I think that like, obviously we're nothing without our community and, like we've gotten like stronger over the years and gotten a lot more interest and there's a lot more people like discussing in the chat. And I always like love seeing those things like fly around and like seeing like what conversations happen. Like sometimes I can't be involved in them all the time just because I'm working, but like just like watching the chat thrive, I'm like, yes, being able to like, participate and like help, uplift people, like give them advice while they're, listening to the episode. Like I just love that so much. And so, yeah, thank you all for being, a part of Painted in Color and a part of what we do here because, it's very important to us and, I hope that it's important to y'all as well. Yeah, it's like really cool.
It always makes me happy seeing people responding to and feeling like they're inspired too, like for the week. Cause I don't know, it's just like we're kind of making the show for ourselves first, I suppose. It's kind of like when you make art, like you hope people like it too, but it always means a lot when they say that it does mean a lot to them. So
yeah, well, I think when you're making something for yourself, you're giving yourself something that you're not seeing like in other places. And I think that that's like bound to resonate with other people no matter what, when you're being authentic and when you're being like your true self and your true nature. I've definitely found that in my art, that's always the stuff that resonates the most is like the ones that are most authentic, and that extends to the show as well. And it's just like really cool to see that people are like getting that Monday inspiration and going in the rest of the week with a better mindset to go forward with. So I just think that's really cool. And I'm really happy that we can do that for other people. It's like, yay. It's like, yay, we're doing something good, Mia. I'm happy about that.
Mine too.
So yeah, it's really onward and upward from here, honestly.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you like, anything else that we didn't touch on that you wanted to touch on before we head out? Because I think we're almost at an hour.
Oh, right. Yeah. I love your character, by the way. She's gorgeous.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Yeah, that went really fast. I'm terrified to draw this hand though. There's supposed to be a thumb here.
You got this.
No, I'm like motivating myself by saying, challenge yourselves. Like,
oh, yeah.
the way you can get better. Drawing hands with no reference, mistake.
I guess the only thing is that I'm kind of saying this as somewhat like how we told ourselves, or we told people we're going to start the show or whatever, and it's like now we have to do it. I'm sort of telling myself this and telling anybody else this that needs the same advice, but I want to live my life with less fear. It's like inevitable that there will be things that terrify me because it happens every freaking day. But I guess I just don't want to be so crippled by it. And so I think that if I could change something from 2020 Mia, like where I was when I started, I had a lot of fear and I still have a lot of it, but I just feel like I just want to keep working on that, on welcoming the fear when it's there, but not letting it take over, because
Yeah.
it gets in the way of creating, it gets in the way of anything that I want to do, whether that's communicate with other people or get my thoughts across. Like I'll literally be with, mid-sentence and start hearing how I'm sounding and be like, oh no, I gotta bail. I gotta get out of here.
No.
And that's what fear does, it's like it doesn't let you connect with another person or connect with your art, and I think that, or be like in that moment right now and just being like, hey, this is not a perfect drawing, but who cares, or whatever
Yeah.
your fear might be. And I want this for everyone, to just not let your fears get in the way of the things you want to make and the people you want to connect with.
Yeah. So like, oh, I guess like that's a good question too. It's like of your goals of like, for yourself. And I'm assuming like that's probably one of them. Do you have any others that you wanted to share?
I think it would just be it's very process based, but I think that I'm noticing with my current project right now that my process is very broken. And
Oh
it's like
no.
things get finished and accomplished, I feel like by luck and just like things falling into place. And I would rather, I wish that it was more that I had a system that I could rely on more, because I trust the process. And I think that's what's missing. It's like I don't trust that I will get there. And so I sort of fumble my way in the dark. And so, yeah, I guess just as a personal goal, I would like to focus on my process more, because I feel like the end result and the finish line of a lot of different things would kind of like fall into place more often if I focused on that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I completely get it.
Because for the first half of my life, I think I was more end goal oriented, like getting here, doing this, finishing that. And yes, those things are still important to me, but I realize now that it's not the end goal that's as important as the getting there,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like you want to enjoy the journey just as much as you get just as much as you enjoy the end goal.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think for me, my goal is to just like have more confidence and faith in myself.
Mm.
And like by that, I mean like I just need to like start my actual projects that I've been planning for years and years. And I know I've been saying this like since the show started, but I think that right now where I am in life, like having been at such a crossroads and having been, like and like going through like hard times with like, losing my job and moving and just kind of like reestablishing myself. Like I think this is the perfect time to like reflect on like what I really want to do and to choose my happiness first. And so I am going to be really working on avant-garde and making it into something that is, like again, self-indulgent and like the thing that I've always wanted to make. And so just like having the confidence to go forward and doing that, and just also not stopping myself when I do want to create, because like sometimes I feel guilty if I have other things going on and I just need to like, create more art. Like I just want to make art, and not just like for the content or like for something to post on social media, but just for myself and my own happiness, like that I always don't have to share. So that's what I really want to continue to aim towards. Like I'm in a lot more of an inspiring space in Atlanta where everything is green and there's trees and it's like my preferred biome. And like I just like want to use that inspiration to fuel my projects and creativity going forward and actually follow through with that. And yeah, I'd like to also find more coping mechanisms for my own ADHD, just as a general goal, so that I can stay on top of myself and make sure that I'm accomplishing what I need to accomplish. So that's my goal for going forward. And yeah, like hopefully I can aim towards that. But those are continuous things that are always like growth based and just improving as a person, as a human being. So yeah, like it's just really cool because like I learned something new all the time, and like I'm trying not to regret like how I carried out life thus far, like because like I also like have regrets too, like, oh, I wish I made more and I wish I like did more and I wish I listened to myself more. But my like one of my best friends this last weekend, she told me that she was like telling somebody else this, who like had felt like he'd missed out on something. She was like, doesn't it feel so good that you've never missed out on anything in your entire life? And I really, really love that statement, because yeah, like everything that we've done so far in life, like that was always going to happen. Like, you know, like it happened and like there's no going back, there's no changing it. Therefore, you haven't actually missed out on anything, even if you think you did. And it was a really good way to like kind of dispel like, you know, the FOMO that I tend to have and like the regrets that I tend to have. Because like everything on this path so far is all meant for a purpose. And you know, it led us here. We're like, you know, we're still alive, we're still relatively healthy, and we're still creating. And like as long as I can do that, like I'll, you know, I'll be, you know, I'll feel grateful for like where I am in life and the fact that like, you know, I have this voice that I'm able to, you know, share with other people. And I just think that's a really cool way of looking at it. So just want to share that with people if they're struggling with you know, feeling like they missed out or they're not doing enough. Like you haven't missed out on anything. Don't worry. You are fine.
That's brilliant. Yeah. I didn't fully understand it at first when you said it. I'm like, wait, what do you mean? I'm like, oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's so deep. I love it. And it's
Yeah.
true because it's so easy to regret things, but my partner's always trying to remind me that it's like you needed to do and I think you've said this a similar thing in a similar way to me before, where it's like you needed to make every step that you took to get to where you are right now, you know. And even if you might not, I mean, for a lot of people too, that you might not be at the spot where it feels like where you want to be right now, you will get there, you know. It's just like just persistence is part of it, but it's like where you are right now will not prevent you from getting there, you know what I mean? And I know that sounds maybe too optimistic if you're in a bad place right now, but just again, trust the process, trust that you're on the path.
Yeah. And even if you don't end up landing where you wanted to go, because like, that happens a lot too.
Yeah.
But if you don't land where you wanted to go, like you've landed somewhere else, and like there's always things to learn from anywhere that you land. You know, from like bad relationships, bad jobs, bad projects, bad like, you know, circumstances in life. There's always something to learn and take away. And in the moment, it might not feel like it, but as you know, when you survive it and when you can like look back on it, just like know that, you know, you've grown from that in some kind of way or another, even if you can't see it at first. And there was something that you took away from it. If it was a bad experience, you're probably making moves to not repeat that bad experience. And that like led you to not repeat it. And to maybe like, you know, avoid something that could be even worse. So, you know, just know that, you know, your journey is your journey and it cannot be compared to other people's journeys. So, you know, don't feel bad. You know, again, like you know, people around you seem like they're doing better, seem like they're always doing amazing. And again, like everybody has their own struggles too. So even when people seem like they're doing amazing, you don't know what's going on in the behind the scenes. So just like, you know, let yourself be on your journey and whatever that means for you and make it the best journey that it can be. Because that's all you can do, right?
Very beautifully said. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, God, Mia, that's so beautiful.
Thanks.
What
I
an
love
amazing-
Queen of the Damned. That's one of my
Yeah.
favorite
Oh,
characters.
Aaliyah.
Amazing.
Our queen.
I don't think I'm doing her justice, but you know, she's freaking gorgeous.
Definitely are. Yeah. But I think like, you know, that's what I want to leave everybody with. Is there anything else that you wanted to leave people with, Mia?
I
Before
think
we
that's like the mic drop to end the episode with.
before we are dearly departed. This 50th episode, you know, soon to be welcome to October session.
Yes.
Yeah. But this has been awesome, Mia. Thank you so much for, you know, just being an amazing co-host and amazing partner to do this show with. You know, again, like I love you a lot and I can't do this without you. And it's just been, you know, an amazing just blessing having you as a part of my life. So, you know, I really, really appreciate that you shared so much with me over you know, just over the years that we've done this show. Yeah, I'm really grateful for that. And yeah, thank you for everything. Seriously.
Right back at you. I can't. I'm gonna like go into super gush territory here if I say everything that I feel about our friendship. But seriously, I could not have asked for a more amazing person to share the show with. And shout outs to Eric and Esther. You all are amazing. And to all our listeners who like show up every week or you know watch our episodes after the fact. You're all are incredible, and thank you so much for contributing to the show as well in your own way.
Yeah, seriously, thank you all so much. I cannot overstate it enough. Y'all have been amazing as a community. And you know, like whether you join in the chat, join in on the comments, or join in on the discussions on, either Discord or the Facebook group, the Painted in Color podcast discussion group. Like, thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I'm all, I probably can speak for all of us, but all of our hearts, for just being a part of our community and, keeping everything alive. It's been really wonderful. And we're just like hoping to bring you more, and giving you the best that we can give you, and keep going forward better and stronger. So thank you all so much. Love you all so much. And we will see y'all in 2 weeks. Bye, everybody. Yay. And a salute for Eric.
For Eric.